You are live. Okay, great. I'm live, and now I've got to get live on Instagram, and there we go. All right, DT2 Comics Chat here. Time for my weekly comics chat. What I do in this live stream is I talk about the thing that caught my eye the most this week in the comics sphere. Now, I don't talk about everything that happened in the week. I'm thinking I probably have to make separate videos for those if I'm going to do that. But I thought about making it like a weekly roundup style format. So y'all let me know what you want to do, because what I'm doing now is one topic at a time. And what I pick out is the topic that most stood out to me during the week, the one that I want to talk about. But if you want me to do like a roundup, because a lot of things happened this week, a lot of the pushback, feedback from Captain America Brave New World and the Daredevil trailer dropped this week. And so there's a lot of things that happen in the comic sphere because comics are no longer about comics. Comics are about multiple things now. They're the least about, which is ironic. Comic books are the least about the comic books themselves now. And that's the smallest part of comicdom, which is really, really funny and ironic, but it's still true. So comic books are the least about themselves now. Comic books are also about the fandoms that support them. Comic books are about the conventions that feature them. Comic books are about the TV shows and the movies and the games that feature superhero characters. Okay. And then there's a whole indie comic scene. And by indie, they generally mean just like not Marvel or not DC, not the big two. So that's like making a cola drink and it's not Pepsi Cola or Coca Cola, but it's still a cola drink. And so that's oversimplified, I know. But indie comics is its own thing. It has its own scene, and it has for quite some time. So I just talk about the comic item of the week, again, that stood out the most to me. But if y'all want me to do a format that's more like a weekly roundup, or if you have other subjects you want me to cover, let me know. Just tell me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter every day. So follow me on Twitter at DT2 Comics Chat. And then you can talk to me because I'm there every day. And you can let me know about if there's other stuff you want me to cover, if you want this weekly thing to be more like a roundup. Because right now, like I said, I'm just doing one topic at a time. So what we're going to talk about today is Kamala Khan, and more specifically, what they're doing with her now. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with Kamala Khan, she's been around since 2013. So that's 12 years now, 12 years in August. And actually, she is the most, what did they say in Mean Girls? Gretchen kept trying to make fetch happen. And Regina said, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. Okay, Kamala Khan is a character that Marvel has been trying to make happen for 12 years now. She's created by Sanaa Amanat, Stephen Wacker, Willow Wilson, drawn by Adrian Alfona and James McKelvey. But she's really an insert character for Sanaa. Let me pull Sanaa's Instagram up in case you're not familiar with her. Okay, this is Sanaa's Instagram. Okay, and so who Kamala Khan really is an insert character. You see her there with Chadwick Boseman. Okay, she's an insert character. So the thing about Kamala Khan that they have always touted her as and that they always pushed her as was the first Muslim American superhero and the first Muslim American superhero with their own comic. And so Kamala is a Muslim protagonist, and she's a Pakistani American personality. Okay, she's a teenager from New Jersey. Her powers have kind of been shifting since she existed. So first they gave her basically the same powers as Mr. Fantastic. She stretched, and then they thought that was too much of a copy, and they thought that was kind of silly because some people think that Reed's powers are silly. So then they gave her things where she, quote unquote, embiggens. She's like embiggens her hands. She makes her hands giant size, and it's really funny. That's always been a joke, and that's always been funny, the way that people make fun of her embiggening powers because they're kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so that's a little bit of background about how she was. But the thing about her has always been that she is Pakistani American and she's the first Muslim based superhero with her own comic. And that's what they keep trying to make happen. Okay. Also, with Kamala and how she started out, she was an Avengers fangirl. And she was all about Ms. Marvel. Once Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel, she was a heavy fangirl of Captain Marvel, which is why she adopted the Ms. Marvel persona and the costume, because her costume is kind of a remake of Carol Danvers' costume when she held the title of Ms. Marvel. So Kamala has always been an Avengers fangirl, always been a Captain Marvel fangirl from the beginning. Okay. And so when she first started out, then they spun her into being an Inhuman and how her powers activated when she got exposed to the Terrigen Mist, which is how Inhumans are made these days, because they originally come from the High Evolutionary. So that's how they started her out. And then the only thing that she's done that I like was that Kamala founded the Champions. Now, I love the Champions. I love Mark Waid's early run. I love the Champions. Everything about that book made sense to me for Kamala to be the leader there, because basically she got disillusioned with the Avengers. She got disillusioned with how the Avengers did things, and she no longer agreed with the way they handled business. So she split off from them, and it was a big dramatic thing because, again, she was an Avengers fangirl. So she split off from them and formed her own group so she can do her own thing. And she used social media to start a revolution. I love that. Okay, I love that whole thing. It was so on point. Because the thing about being young, when you're young, the thing you hate the most is old. Whatever you think old is, you don't want to be that and you don't want to be around it. So if you want to chase young people away, put their parents in the same sphere as them and the young people will all leave. Because young people just want to be around their peer group. So Facebook was a thing, and then when your parents and your grandparents started getting on Facebook, then it went to Snapchat, and a lot of people are on Instagram. But wherever they think the old folks and the grown folks are, the young people do not want to be there. So that's what I mean when I say I thought Kamala's characterization for wanting to start her own Avengers, I thought that was perfect. Because it makes sense. Whenever you have a new generation come up, they don't always agree with the standards and the values and the techniques of the past. They don't always look at the older generation and say they want to emulate that exactly. And sometimes they don't want to emulate it at all. Okay? So that's the one thing that Kamala Khan has done in her existence that I really, really liked. Everything else has been her being forced down people's throats, trying to become a character that Marvel keeps trying to make happen. Okay? Now, one of the most bittersweet things about this whole thing is that in live action, Kamala Khan was played by an actress named Iman Vellani. And the thing about Iman Vellani is she's great. She's just such a wonderful, bubbly young lady until you can't help but love her. Iman is awesome. She's a fangirl. She's into comics. She knows the comics lore. She knows the mythology. She argued with Kevin Feige about how the MCU is not 616 because it's not. And I mean, she's great. And she brings that energy to her portrayal of Kamala Khan with her. And if you ever see her as Kamala, you can feel it. Okay, so Iman Vellani, the actress, is incredible. And she does a great job at portraying Kamala Khan. So if all that is true, then the next logical question is, what's the problem? The problem is that Kamala Khan is not popular. They keep trying to make her popular. They keep trying to say she's the next thing, or she's the big thing, or she's beloved by so many, but the numbers don't support that. And I'm going to show you that. Okay. So let me pull this up on the screen. Look at that. Ms. Marvel earns the lowest viewership of any Marvel or Disney Plus show. So you can read that article. So Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 95%, but it's recorded the lowest viewership in its opening 5 days. And then it talked about the actual numbers and how she debuted underneath Loki, Moon Knight, Falcon, and Winter Soldier. And so no matter how they keep trying to say that Ms. Marvel is such a great character and beloved by all, nobody watched her show. They even rebroadcast it on ABC not too long ago, and nobody watched it there either. So they keep trying to say how she's beloved by many and she has all this strong fan base and blah, 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 but nobody watches her content. Okay? I will also back that up with what happened with the movie. Now, as quiet as it's kept, they don't believe in Carol Danvers either, because they did not give her Captain Marvel 2. The sequel to Captain Marvel, starring Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, was The Marvels. So they made it a team-up movie with Carol Danvers, Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, and Monica Rambeau. Now, Monica Rambeau was also the original Captain Marvel in the comics, but it didn't really play out that way in the MCU. So, once again, just like that other article is trying to shield for Kamala's show, this Forbes article is trying to shield for the Marvels movie, okay, saying that it's the lowest grossing MCU movie, but it doesn't deserve to be because it's just such a fantastic film. Okay, so when you look at the numbers, when you look at the numbers that they pulled in worldwide, Iron Man 585 million, Ant-Man 519 million, even Quantumania pulled in 476 million. Okay, on and on. Eternals 402 million, Black Widow 379 million. Okay, Incredible Hulk 264 million, and look at where the Marvels are. 197 million. Look at that. $197 million. So nobody watched that movie. I mean, I don't know how you're going to argue with that when it pulled in the lowest possible gross, worldwide gross out of all the Marvel films that it was compared to. So once again, nobody's watching her content. So they keep trying to spin the narrative. They keep trying to talk about how beloved this character is and how everybody loves her and she's got all these fans and this great fan base, the same kind of stuff they said about the Acolyte. Okay, but if that were true, then her solo series would have been more watched. And if that were true, then the movie she was in would have been more watched. But it's a narrative they keep trying to spin. And all of that was important because of what we're going to talk about next. So you've got to understand, going into what we're going to talk about next, how hard they've been trying to make Kamala Khan happen, or Kamala Khan. I'm never sure how you say her name, if it's Kamala or Kamala. But either way, they've been trying so hard to make her happen for so long. And so you need to understand that going into what we're going to talk about next. Because what we're going to talk about next is this Bounding into Comics article, where we now discover, because first Kamala was an Inhuman, then in the comics they killed her, and they killed her in the pages of Spider-Man. Then they brought her back as a mutant, And then they said that she's the first mutant in the MCU. Lord have mercy. Now, no matter what people say, this is why I don't argue with certain people anymore, because they're disingenuous. The reason they keep attaching her to big names is because they're trying to make her happen, because nobody cares about her on her own. How do I know that's true? Because when a recording artist is starting out, one of the things that the record label does, or the recording artist themselves does, is they guest star on somebody else's record. They jump on somebody else's track. And so if nobody knows who you are, one of the easiest ways to get your name out there is to do a collab with someone that's more famous than you. To drop a track with someone that's already established, that's already got eyes on them, that's already a big name, that's already got a fan base. Okay? That's the best way to introduce you to a worldwide audience, is connect you to someone that's already established. So anybody that's trying to act like that isn't true, I don't know what to tell you, because that is ridiculously true. That is apparently true. That is obviously true. Well, that's what they've been doing with Kamala Khan since she was introduced. Trying to associate her with the biggest names in Marvel Comics to try to make her happen. First, it was the Avengers, and then when they killed her in the pages of Spider-Man, which makes no sense, because she's never really had that much of a connection with Peter. She did have a connection with Miles Morales. Miles Morales was a part of the Champions, but not really that strong of a connection with Peter. But they killed her in the pages of Spider-Man. Why? To get eyes on the comic. That's why. Because nobody else would have really paid attention to her death. And we already knew when we saw the issue that Kamala Khan was going to die in, we already knew that she was coming back. We knew that wasn't permanent. So it really didn't have an impact. When they brought her back as a mutant and as an X-Man. Because once again, so that's the Avengers, Spider-Man, and the X-Men. They've tried to attach this character to make her popular, to make her happen. And it still hasn't happened. So once again, important that you understand that going in, because what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at the Bounding into Comics article that talks about what's coming up with the X-Men, and then we're going to look at some tweet responses to that, and then we're going to look at the future of the MCU. So let me pull that article up. Just look at the title. Just look at the title. Marvel Comics to completely wreck and reassemble mutant canon, an upcoming giant-size X-Men 50th anniversary event, will rewrite Kamala Khan into classic storylines like Dark Phoenix and House of M. When I read that, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. They're literally going to retcon the comics themselves to insert Kamala Khan into events that she had nothing to do with. Again, this character was created in 2013. And they're retconning her into events that happened way before her. The Dark Phoenix storyline? Are you kidding me? That's the greatest X-Men storyline of all time, bar none. And it's one of the greatest comic storylines in the history of comics. The Dark Phoenix saga, if you've never read that, you owe yourself to read the books, because they've never been able to do that justice in live action. Now, the X-Men animated series did it pretty well, but you really need to read the books by Claremont and Byrne. Okay, so get a trade paperback and read that if you want to see what the Dark Phoenix stuff is about. But now they're trying to drop Kamala into it? I can't with that. Okay, so let's look at this article. Just when it felt like the publisher couldn't get any more creatively desperate than seriously reviving Gwen Stacy. I'm going to talk about that in another video, because everybody knows I'm a strong Gwen Stacy fan. Marvel Comics has announced this summer they'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Giant Size X-Men Volume Number 1. by throwing Kamala Khan into the time stream and having her canonically added into some of the titular team's most iconic moments. I just need you to think about that. Kamala's a mutant, and she's an X-Man, and now she's going to be rewritten to be in there since the beginning of the all new, all different X-Men. The book that introduced the X-Men as we know them now, the book that moved us away from the original five and gave us the new team. Because in John Size X-Men #1, we got introduced to Wolverine already existed, but they brought him to the X-Men. We had Sunfire, we had Thunderbird, we had Banshee, we had Nightcrawler, we had Storm, we had Colossus, we had all of the cool popular characters that have characterized the X-Men for years. We introduced in John Size X-Men #1. Now they're putting Kamala in that. Why? Why? Still trying to make this character happen. Okay? So she was retconned to be a mutant at the end of the Krakoa era. She got drawn into the past, and now she's going to be introduced in everything. Look at that. John Size X-Men, look at that. Now she's on the cover with them. I can't believe it. I can't, and not is she only on the cover, she's front and center. This is unbelievable. Okay, they're not going to make this character happen. This is still not going to do it. But they think it will. And so see how they're talking about it. Ever since she discovered she was a mutant, Kamala Khan has been balancing her previous life as Ms. Marvel with her role as a leader in the new community. But her conflicted identity has come at a deep personal cost, blah, 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 blah. Now pulled into the distant past by an unhinged villain with deep ties to the mutant history, Ms. Marvel will witness the iconic birth of the uncanny X-Men and their first encounter with Krakoa from an all-new, all-different perspective. But when history begins to change, can either Kamala Khan or the X-Men themselves survive the experience? What's not going to survive the experience is Marvel Comics. Okay? And they're going to put her into House of M as well. House of M was another pivotal series. Look at that. It happened in 2005, way before Kamala was even around. But anyway, in House of M, what happened is that Wanda said no more mutants and basically rewrote reality to get rid of most of the mutants. And it was this whole thing. House of M was this whole thing, and it had several spin-off series, and we got introduced to different versions of characters. And it was this big deal. Kamala's nowhere around, but she's going to be in it now. Okay? And I can't believe it. They're going to work together to introduce the X-Men that never was. Okay? They're going to introduce the X-Men that nobody wants. Every issue of John Size is here to blow your mind and break your heart. Okay. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you confess. Be careful what jump out your mouth. It's going to break people's hearts, all right, but not in a good way. So look at this. Look at everything they're trying to shoehorn Kamala into. John Size X-Men #1, the Dark Phoenix saga, which just blows my mind. Where she's going to take Kitty Pryde's place, or she's going to be friends with Kitty Pryde, or So I know, Kitty doesn't come till later, but I'm just thinking about as the X-Men historical events unfold. Because Kitty was the teenager. She was the new kid on the block when she was introduced. Okay, Age of Apocalypse, House of M, John Size X-Men #2. The shocking finale redefines mutant history forever. Lord have mercy. This is a mistake. What'd you say? I said this is a mistake. This is a mistake of epic proportions. No one is going to like this. No one is going to want this. No one is going to buy this. They're going to retcon this eventually. This is not going to stick. I don't understand the penchant that modern creators have for taking classic, established storylines and taking stories that have been beloved for generations and completely wrecking them. I don't understand why they love to do that, but I know that they do. Let's take a look at some of the comments underneath that article that I just read, and then we're going to go on Twitter. Let's look at some of these comments. She probably gave Xavier the idea for the X-Men in the first place. She also taught Uncle Ben about power and responsibility before he taught it to Peter. She encouraged Steve Rogers to serve his country. She scientifically inspired Tony Stark, Reed Richards, Hank Pym, Bruce Banner, and she taught Iron Fist how to fight. It all comes back to Kamala. She literally is the Marvel Universe. That sums it up. That's what they're trying to do with this character. So now you're getting it. Comics are a girl thing. Whoever thought boys would be interested in comics. Okay? From what I understand, for Marvel anyway, is outrage and anger sells books. Well, they should break some records then. Okay. Couldn't get more replies. Okay. They desperately want to make these tokenized characters popular by torching canon and brute forcing their way into stardom at any cost, written by Jude Guy. That's absolutely right. Can we just kill off all the all-new Marvel characters already? It's been over a decade since Disney pushed this, and they still are a failed experiment. Perfect. That is perfectly stated. Okay? The tokenized characters, the stuff they introduced with all-new Marvel in 2015, where they race swapped and gender swapped and swapped everything that was canon and historically true for these new characters, trying to make a more diverse DI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're a failed experiment. It didn't work then. It's not working now. It's never going to work because nobody likes or wants these characters. Okay? Now we're going to go on Twitter and see some of the responses to this article. Okay? You should be able to see that. Let's look at some of the Twitter responses. Let me change my screen so you can see that a little bit bigger. Move that out the way. Okay. There we go. Much better. Look at that. So I made a post called Finally Pure Retardium. Now, I did not invent that meme. I got it from somewhere else. I saw somebody else with that meme. So that's not my meme originally. Just want to say that. But a lot of people have laughed at it. I love it. Pure Retardium. Okay? Because this isn't going to work, but they think it's going to. Okay? If you will not love her, we will make you love her. Marvel's bold new sunk cost strategy for making you like the editor-in-chief's self-insert original character. Okay? Scott, Marvel is a clown show. That first remark was from Keita. Fear Lantern, this will cement my absolute hate off this self-insert character, and I doubt I'm alone on that. No, you're not. Crazy Cat Stand Heresy, Garbage Dump, Garbage Fire. Okay. Fabian, instead of making a milestone issue with characters that people actually care about, Marvel is so desperately trying to force us Kamala just because inclusion and woke stuff. Okay, Marvel just write good stories and sales will go up by themselves. Wig Bisky, why? That's completely stupid. Irish Mike, Marvel loves doubling down on crap that doesn't work. They are really forcing her down our throats to their own detriment. Matches Malone, that's stupid. Toby Wan doesn't give a crap anymore. Michael Wynn, Dumpster Fire. Do you get it? Stop trying to make fetch happen. Do you get it? Okay. Crash Line, pure blasphemy. Modern Marvel sucks. Just write a good story and people will read it. If no one is buying your character, maybe try again. Shoehorning a character into the glory days only pisses off old fans. See that? So Opinion Nerded tends to agree with it. Sentry's also been retconned in the Marvel timelines. I don't see a problem as long as it's done well. Okay. You are like Kamala Khan, so help us God, Marvel from Vex. So, I mean, on and on and on. People are, on my timeline anyway, are saying the same thing. I love this meme, throwing out the trash, because nobody wants this. Nobody's excited about this. Nobody wants to see the classic X-Men stories retooled and redone to include Kamala Khan. Nobody wants that, literally nobody. Okay? So I don't know, but Marvel is just determined to make this happen, and this is going to blow up in their face. Just like every other attempt to make Kamala Khan happen has literally blown up in their faces. So the last thing I want to talk about today is, what does this mean for the MCU going forward? So let's look at the movies coming up. So the movies coming up, we already had Deadpool and Wolverine, which was the biggest hit that Marvel has had in a very, very long time. Okay. Captain America Brave New World just dropped. I think I saw something that said it had a 70% drop off, 70% drop off in its second week. To the surprise of no one, Thunderbolts is going to drop in May. Fantastic Four First Steps is going to drop in July. I do plan on seeing Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. I am never going to watch Captain America Brave New World. So notice the Blade movie doesn't even have a release date, because they have started and stopped that movie 5 times trying to rewrite it, because the original idea was they were going to do their usual, do a bait and switch and replace Blade with his daughter. Okay, and once that leaked, even the lead actor, I can't say his name, Ali, I always get his first name messed up, even he didn't want to be a part of that. So I'm sure they keep trying to finagle a script that does that, and nobody wants that. They don't understand that the era of woke is over, but the era of woke never worked in the first place. And Avengers Doomsday is supposed to drop next year, and Secret Wars the year after that. I will probably see those for review purposes so I can talk about them, and I know Comics Twitter will be buzzing about them, so I'll probably have to see those. I still ain't watching Brave New World. I'm actually interested to see how the Fantastic Four turns out. That's the only movie I still want to see, and I'm very skeptical about that. But what this means is that if they do this retooling in the comics, that they are going to insert Kamala probably here. Fantastic Four obviously is already wrapped. So if they do any reshoots, they might have a cameo of Kamala in Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four. She's definitely going to be in Doomsday and Secret Wars. Okay, and they're probably going to retool everything and make it seem like the X-Men were her idea instead of Xavier's idea, because she's going to be the first mutant in Marvel. And so they're probably going to retool the MCU to reflect that as well. That is also going to be a failing move. So in conclusion, nobody really wants to see Kamala Khan in the class. See, once again, they're forcing her into stuff that's popular and famous. In the glory days and the thing that made Marvel successful, because everything they've done with her on her own hasn't worked. That's why they keep associating her with the biggest names possible, and that still hasn't worked. It's not going to work this time either. Okay? So I don't understand what it's going to take for Marvel to get it, but I'll give you my prediction. My prediction is they're going to end up selling off their properties, just like they did in the 90s. In the 90s, they licensed off the movie rights to the biggest characters, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and X-Men, because they were broke. So before they got a resurgence, they had to do that to make money because they were broke. My prediction is before this is all said and done, they're going to do that again. Marvel's going to end up licensing off many of their IPs, because this stuff is going to keep crashing and burning until they run out of money, until they run out of fans. I don't know which one. I don't know. Okay. The relationship that comic fans have now with comic books and comic media is abusive. I'm going to say that one more time. The relationship that comic fans have now with comic books and comic media is abusive. Comic media has been taken over by people that hate the characters, hate the mythology and the lore, and specifically hate the fans. So now they're writing things to spite the longtime fans. The people that have been supporting comic books before they were cool, and the people that made them rich, they are now creating content specifically to spite those people. Okay? So they don't seem to understand that you can't do that forever. That's a temporary approach. And the worst business model I've ever heard of in my life, to do stuff on purpose, to spite and anger the people that you want to give you money. What other business does that? That doesn't make any sense. And so it's an abusive relationship at this point. And so what they don't understand and what they don't want to understand is that if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, what is the thing that makes you get out of it? The thing that makes you get out of an abusive relationship is when the pain gets too great and you can't take it anymore. And many times people hang in there because they think they can change the other person, or whatever reason, or you're addicted to them, they become like drugs to you, or you just don't want to let them go, or maybe you don't want to let your dream of the relationship go, anything like that. But the thing that makes you finally let go of a toxic person in your life is that the pain gets too great. The pain becomes so great that you can't take it anymore. That's what's going to happen here. Okay? It's already happened with so many comic fans. It's eventually going to happen with normies. You can't get to the $1 billion mark with a comic book movie, a superhero movie, without normies. There's not enough comic book fans to give you that kind of money. So it has to have mass audience appeal. They are going to burn the normies out with all of this woke stuff so badly until eventually the pain is going to get so great that people are just going to give up. And superhero related media is going to go the way of Westerns. It'll still be around, but it won't be in vogue. It won't be the order of the day like it's been ever since Iron Man in 2008. Eventually that period is going to come to a close, and what's going to bring it to a close is the pain of being a comic book fan is going to get too great. Now, diehard comic book fans like myself, we're still going to buy comics and trade paperbacks, stuff like that. But the normies, the mainstream audience that can bring you over the $1 billion mark is going to go away. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I know it's coming. Okay? There's no other way this story can end. Okay? So that's it for this weekly Comics Chat. Don't forget to let me know if you want me to do more of a roundup style thing, or because right now I'm doing one story at a time. Leave me some comments. Or what do you think about this? What do you think about what I've said about Kamala Khan? What do you think about her as a character? What do you think about what Marvel is doing to try to reintroduce her in the X-Men books and changing the entire mutant lore and history to force her in it? It's still unbelievable to me when I say that, okay? Leave me some comments, let me know, and I'll see you next week. DT2 Comics Chat, out.